Welcome to another one of my videos on the SAT reading section. This is the second part of the vocabulary in context video. Earlier we covered the replacement of certain words in context. Here we're looking at what a phrase or word would convey about tone, meaning, or style in a passage. We generally see that it comes in three types. Some that ask about the feeling or nature of a character, so what a certain word or phrase suggests about the nature of a character, what it suggests about an object or an entity, or what the word or phrase suggests about the essential tone or mood being established. Here I'd just like to clarify a bit of theory. Tone and mood are not the same thing. Many people bear this misconception, but it actually isn't the same. I've simplified the difference for you. If we look at tone, it talks about the attitude of an author towards a subject. But if we talk about mood, it's kind of how you feel, how the passage makes you feel. So that's pretty much the difference. I know there is a gray area when it comes to this, but I've given you an example to make it clearer. So I've talked about ice cream over here. Every child enjoys the diabetic catastrophe, orthodoxly known as ice cream. Chocolate brown drops coated little Joe's lips, expanding into a smile with each lick. Joe frolicked around, dancing in the sunshine, joy in one fist and ice cream in the other. So if I had to talk about the tone over here towards ice cream, so the author's impression of ice cream, he's called it a diabetic catastrophe. It's mocking, it shows a mild dislike. So the tone towards ice cream is slightly mocking and there's a mild dislike. But if we look at the mood of the passage, it's very happy in general. I mean, it's talking about dancing, smiling, frolicking around, and so it's very happy and nonchalant, yeah? Nonchalant. So that is essentially the difference. The tone is what the author felt about ice cream, but the mood is generally what it makes you feel, what reading of that makes you feel. So now we're going to cover the first subset of questions that discuss what a phrase or word may suggest about the feeling or feelings or nature of a character. So the emotions or nature of a character. So the question over here asks, when Martha claims that she's no longer a spotless sparkling diamond, she attempts to say that she's no longer, and then there are the options. So as we said in the last video, we're going to read the context before the options. Just charm your way through it, Martha, Henry exclaimed. I'm no longer a sparkling diamond, Martha replied. People don't turn around for me anymore. So we generally see that spotless sparkling diamond is something positive, generally related to beauty, and we see that Martha is talking about people not turning around for her anymore, so it's very likely that she's suggesting that she's not any beautiful anymore or not as young anymore, and we see that's there in the option, so we can quickly conclude it's C and move on. But sometimes the passages are more figurative. So in this case, we're looking at how the author uses laser gaze and spat fire to describe Mr. Dubois. The context is he entered. The students anxiously dusted their work. Mr. Dubois turned his laser gaze, looking disapprovingly. He spat fire, shredding their assignments as he went by each. The first victim cried. It's very negative over here, so straight away we can eliminate any options that are positive. So we see that young and flirtatious, joyous and proud are both positive. However, all the phrases used here are in a very negative sense, therefore we definitely know it's not C and it's not D. We see B is quite neutral, and therefore we could actually conclude that it's not even B and just choose A, even if we didn't know what acrimonious means. Although it's a good idea if you knew what the word meant. But if we look at the context again, we're seeing that he's turning his laser gaze, suggesting he's judgmental. He's like looking at it, scrutinizing it, very judgy, and he spat fire. This is fire in terms when it's used for what a person is saying. It generally means he's spewing insults, and therefore that fits the word acrimonious, and therefore we know it's option A. So quick recap as to how we answer these questions. We read the questions, but not the options. We then read the context. We think of what tone is being put forth. First, think about in the umbrella terms of positive or negative. You could even have a separate umbrella for neutral, and then start thinking more specifically. So if it's positive, what mood in the positive moods is it expressing, and then we just choose the closest option. Now, in our science questions or the questions that involve data in the reading section, they will often use words and talk about what that word or phrase suggests about a sample group or about a phenomenon. So not essentially the feelings or characteristics of it, but it's just whether you understand how the research is being reported as such. So here they're asking us what the word ambivalent demonstrates about individuals in group A. Now, the study conducted by XYZ tried to determine the legitimacy of pineapple as a pizza topping. Out of the 300 people interviewed, those in group A expressed an ambivalent opinion when it came to their preferences regarding pineapple on pizza. Now here it becomes important that you actually have a good command of vocabulary. We must know that ambivalent means having a conflicted or no clear opinions, so having being a bit on both sides. Like, there are a couple of keywords that you definitely must know, because in these cases you really cannot work it out from the context. You need to know what the word means, and then so over here it means having a conflicted opinion or having no clear opinion, and then look at which option suggests the same. Here we see that A and B suggests a definite answer, so A saying it's definitely positive and B saying the sentiment was definitely negative, but ambivalent means it's conflicted, so it's definitely not A and B. Now we can look at C and D. D suggests that there was no preference, and even C suggests there was no preference, or that the individuals were conflicted. So now you may be confused. Then this is when it becomes very important that you, after reading the passage, you know what's being talked about in the passage and what's not. The passage here only talks about the legitimacy of pineapple as a pizza topping. It does not say anything about anchovies, and all the answers will always be in the bounds of the investigation, which is only talking about pineapples as a pizza topping. Therefore it has to be C, and it cannot be D because anchovies was not even a part of the investigation. And therefore we arrive at the correct answer, which is actually C. So how did we answer the question? We read the question, we thought of what the word means, we looked at which option best captures the essence of that word, and we ensured that the option we selected referred to what was covered in the investigation. Just on a side note or a personal opinion here, pineapple and pizza do not quite go together. I mean, if you like it, everyone's entitled to their opinions, but it's a disaster, frankly speaking. Finally, the questions ask what word or phrase suggests about the tone or mood being established. This generally is one of the harder types of questions that come in this general umbrella. So they'll ask you questions like the use of phrase 1 and phrase 2 characterize the tone as. So here we're saying that the use of the phrases tattered trinket and standstill sepia characterize the tone as. Now we'll go back to the passage and read it. In the heart of the insalubrious town was the market. Low-budget tourists flocked under the torn banners, picking up tattered trinkets. The vendors yawned, almost melting into the muddy standstill sepia. Now it's all torn, it's run down, it's very negative and boring, under negative, very run down, old. That's the kind of feeling the passage evokes. So then we look at it. Now, it is very common that the SAT actually uses words like antiquated, dilapidated, reverent, impressive, indignant. So it's very important that you know these kind of words that they use very commonly. So either way, if you do not know the meaning of certain words, try to cancel options out. It should be very likely that you know the meaning of words such as perplexing if you're considering giving the SATs anytime soon. So there's nothing really confusing about it. So even if you do not know what convoluted means, which is complicated, you can say it's not D. Flippant and indignant. Here, you need some vocabulary building. If you have done a lot of reading, you probably know what indignant means, angry, and therefore you can say there's nothing angry about it. It's more boring, it's monotonous, so it's not C. Now B again. Most people know the meaning of the word impressive. So even if you don't know what reverent means, which means that you're standing in awe of something, so even if you do not know that, you can easily make out that it's negative. Impressive is quite a positive tone, and therefore the tone is very negative. It cannot be B, and therefore you can arrive at A, that yes, it is antiquated and dilapidated. because torn banners, tattered, which means like once again run down, torn, trinkets is all dilapidated, which is like worn out, and it's kind of giving the feeling that it's old, it's antiquated, and therefore we can characterize it as that A was the answer. And how did we do this? We read the question, we thought of what the phrase conveyed, then we thought of how it stylistically added to the passage. So how those phrases that we looked over here, the tattered trinket and standstill sepia, you can start thinking about how it adds to the passage. So sepia suggested it was boring, tattered trinket suggested that it's run down, it just added to the general feeling of it being run down and insalubrious. Then we looked at which option best corresponded to this tone. We first classified it as positive or negative, then we classified it into boring, run down, amongst others, and therefore we arrived at A. We also cancelled the options out because we thought the options were complex, hard to understand. There were words we possibly didn't know. And then it's very important in these kind of questions, as I said before, that you have a good command of vocabulary. I have a very helpful resource for this, and here I suggest that you keep in touch with things such as Reddit forums or college confidential forums. They generally have good resources from time to time. So I found this list of 85 words recently that these reading tests generally ask classified tone as in these words they use to describe the tone of a passage. I have highlighted the ones that are fairly common and good to know about in purple. I suggest you take a screenshot. I'm going to wait for 3 seconds on each slide. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. You could have paused the video, taken screenshots. I do not suggest memorizing all of them, though it's a good idea. 2, I mean, if you read a lot, you will almost always be able to work out, but it's a very good idea to know those 85 words. Do not memorize them, try using them, and that's a better way of getting to remember them. So when you're writing passages for English or writing essays, just try using these words. It is almost the best way to expand your vocabulary, actually using the words rather than just memorizing the definition. And even if you do not memorize the entire list or do not take the whole list into memory, at least try and learn the general meaning of the words I've highlighted in purple, as they're fairly common. And with that, in the next video, we're going to cover the purpose of a passage, the tone an entire passage or paragraph conveys, not just a word, and the principal ideas that a passage or paragraph conveys, as this is often asked in your SATs. And with that, thank you. See you until next time.